My name is Michael Balick, and I'm from the New York Botanical Garden. And it's a pleasure to be with you here in Iatukwei today, in Vanuatu. The New York Botanical Garden has a Pacific Island program of which plants and people of Vanuatu is a part. Plants mo people belong Vanuatu. And our goals are to study the Pacific Island flora, especially in places where the flora is not known, the plant species are not known, there's no list, so we make inventories. Another objective is to study the way in which people use the plants traditionally as well as today, and that's the production of ethnobotanical books and community manuals so that people will remember the knowledge and keep it in practice so that it can serve future generations in order to improve livelihoods, resilience to change, and sustainability. And the third question or activity that we undertake is to look at how plants can improve primary health care, for example, nutrition, and other ways that knowledge of plants and use of plants can improve people's health and livelihood and quality of life. And then when we know those things, we try to work with local communities to identify conservation areas, because the forest is very important to not only the people of Vanuatu, but to people of the world. In fact, we say forests equal life, which is a very short way of saying that our lives, our livelihoods, our happiness, our health, all depend on having an intact forest. Forests provide water, forests provide food, forests provide shelter. The cyclone house that the community built this week was all from forest products. Forests provide lessons for life. Walking through the forest, you can not help but feel humble about how diverse the animals, the plants, the quality of the air, and just the feeling you get when walking through the forest. Unfortunately, so many people who live in urban areas around the world suffer from something we call nature deficit disorder. It's actually a lack of interaction with nature, with forests, with oceans, with lands and seas, and the creatures that live within them. And we think, and we're sure, that by keeping forests intact, not only around the Pacific, but around the world, this will help future generations. So it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be working with people here in this community and elsewhere in Vanuatu and elsewhere throughout Melanesia and Micronesia and some of the other places I've worked in Central America and South America and Southeast Asia. Everyone seems to have the same philosophy that the forest equals life, and conservation is very important. But as many people have told me, before you can conserve environments, you have to have self-respect, respect for yourself. In addition to that, respect for your culture. And then finally, you can have respect for the environment, the plants, the animals, the fish, all of the organisms that constitute biodiversity on planet Earth. So this is a very important relationship, and sadly we see in some parts of the world where this is slipping away, where people forget their language, where they forget the names of the plants, where they forget the uses of the plants. And overall, we find the people who are in that situation not to be as happy, not to be as healthy, not to be as productive, not to be as respectful of their families, their communities, their nations, and the world. So it's very, very exciting to be here today in this area where people value tradition, value respect and are working actively to try and maintain it, not only for their children's future, but for their grandchildren and many, many generations for the promise of the future.
One of the outcome of the project is the school, custom school here that we have seen it open this week, and now today we have seen the closing. Can you talk about that?
Now, part of preserving knowledge is keeping it in practice. And it's very important to keep traditional knowledge in practice. And a very successful way of doing that is to have custom schools like we have today, like we've seen this week, where elders have come taught younger people about traditional skills, house building, carving, making traditional knots, all sorts of traditional games, traditional foods. So keeping knowledge in practice is a priority. And custom school here in Iatukwei this week, the first in Tanna, is a very, very important activity. And we hope this will continue in many different villages throughout Tanna, throughout Tafea province, and throughout the world. Because keeping knowledge in practice is the way to preserve it.
You have anything to say? Or?
I'd like to thank Rick, who has been so generous and so nice and such a good companion. And thank you for your time. You don't need to keep